Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Full Package RC. My name's Bob. I'm here tonight with our usual suspects of Aaron
Yo, what's up?
and Mike.
Hey guys, what's going on?
Tonight we also have a guest with us who pretty much embodies our whole philosophy here at Full Package. As far as multiple different things RC, helis, cars, sponsored pilot, sponsored racer, good level, not just your backyard basher, but someone who really takes it a little bit more serious, and that's Enzo Albertoni. Hopefully, I did say the last name right there. Did I, Enzo?
You did. Hey guys, how's it going?
All righty. I was hoping I didn't screw it up. I forgot to ask you that part.
No worries.
So before we get to Enzo and find out all about him and get into the meat and potatoes of the whole episode, let's get a little caught up. It's been a bit since we were able to chat with everybody and find out what's been going on. So who wants to go first and tell us what's been happening?
Mike, how the hell you been? Tell us.
I've been better. As
Okay, thanks for joining, folks.
I think we brought this up at the last episode about. I think we did. Maybe we didn't bring it up, but I ended up buying a used vehicle to drag my camper around with, and it's been a thorn in my side ever since I bought it. So still fighting that battle, hoping to get it all sorted out here soon. Hobby wise, I really haven't had much time. It's been getting a little crazy at work, and any extra time that I have to go out to our club field is spent usually on the lawnmower, getting the grass trimmed up and stuff, and I might be able to sneak like maybe one or two flights in, and I gotta hit the road and go on to something else. But I'm getting excited for the flying season. That's for sure. Been working on our little club get together that we're doing in June. It's not a fun fly. It's just, kind of like a member picnic for the club members, but we're actually going to do a pig roast this year. So I rented or found a place to rent a spit and went and got that all sorted out. Now we're trying to find somewhere to get a pig from. So
What's a spit?
None of us have done this before, so it should be interesting.
What's a spit?
A spit is a rotisserie.
Okay. Like a
Just
specific pig rotisserie or?
Yeah, it's just a big, giant rotisserie you can fit. This particular one, you could fit like a 180-pound pig on, I think he said.
Okay. I had no idea what it was.
Have you gone, 53 years in your life without hearing of a spit roast?
I didn't know. Yeah, I have. You knew what it was?
That's insane.
So you knew what it was?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. I lead a sheltered life. What can I say? I had no idea.
So, in Bob's defense, I've never been to one, so that's kind of what's sparking it. I knew what it was, though, so not quite in his defense, but I have never experienced a pig roast before, so that's why we're all kind of like, oh yeah, let's just do it. Let's do it.
Neither have I. I've never done one.
It's turning out to be pretty expensive. It's going to be like a $500-$600 dinner.
Wow.
If we do it ourselves. It'll be worth it. I think it'll be fun. It takes everybody's saying you got to start it the night before and cook it all night and all day and all this stuff. So I don't know. I think I'm in for a treat.
Sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah. Well, you'll be there, so
yeah,
you'll get to experience it.
I might be there.
You'll be there.
I was trying to get Aaron to go, but who knows if he'll be able to go or not.
We'll figure it out.
He's in the drift car season.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's a part of the new what I've been up to and why I can't make it potentially. Started a new better job to step up and back on third shift still, which I'm slowly finding out is the best shift to fly helis because you can come home. I'm home by 8 a.m. and I've been flying a lot of my OMP. I'll go out. I have a field like a block down the street from me. And of course, at that time in the morning, there's no kids out playing sports. There's no one doing anything. So I'll go down and fly for an hour or two. It's actually been really nice and really peaceful working the third shift, just coming home and getting some flights in. So I've actually been flying a lot more again. And I actually haven't touched the drift car in a couple weeks now. So that's getting back into the flying.
Sweet. I'm excited.
Good to get him back in practice.
Yeah, he's getting amped up for that throwing down the M6 at IRCHA this year, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's already been some talks of that. So I've already told them Saturday night I won't be drinking this year, and I'm going to be doing the midnight SmackDown under the SmackDown under the sun or whatever it was. I gotta bring my night flights back. I miss them. It's time to come out of retirement and and wreck his shit. Not mine, of course, but his. So that M6 is a great candidate for that. Either the 570 or the M6 is getting demolished this year. So we'll see.
Well, right now the M6 is got nothing in it, so
that's
that could
only
be
a
an
6S
issue.
machine though. So that may not be too great.
Yeah, but the 570 is only 6S, and look what you do with that.
That's a lot lighter of a machine though. That thing is nasty.
I don't know. This thing's pretty freaking light.
You know what the best machine for throwing down night flights is, right?
Not
Don't
nitro.
even say it. Yeah, keep it to yourself.
I don't even have to say it. You guys already know.
No, not nitro. They bog.
Oh, come on!
Terrible.
Not if you know how to fly it.
Yeah, I agree with Mike on that. If you're bogging the shit out of it, you just collective management. Go fly an MCPX again and learn how to fly.
The sad part is nitro isn't bad. I don't mind it. I like to fly it when I had one. It was just I'm too freaking lazy to want to clean it up and maintain everything, and it's just they make such a freaking mess.
I don't clean it up. I bought a drip pan. I stick it underneath where it hangs on the wall, and it drips its life away.
Nice.
Keeps everything lubricated. It's nice.
Nice.
I do wipe the blades off though because I have to grab it to put it in my truck.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So they get just like a once over wipe down. But yeah,
So
self lubricating. It's great.
So for me, the only new stuff has been I went to Spring Fling the end of April. That was a fun event. I saw Enzo actually there, getting probably like 1 million flights a day. We'll touch on that a little later. He's an animal when he's at the events. When you just fly. It's pretty crazy. But yeah, it was a pretty good event. I actually saw Bert there, which I was surprised because I know he said he wasn't making it out to any events. Walked around the corner to one of the cars and saw him there, and it was good chatting with him for a little while, catching up. Got a couple of flights in. Got to see a bunch of people I haven't seen for a while, hanging out. Typical Spring Fling. Rain on and off. Cold, kind of blah at some of the times. But one of the cool things is they did bring out the cannon and shoot I think it was a 16-pound cannonball out of the cannon this year. That was pretty cool. But the worst thing was, I believe it was Saturday night, the pollen was something I had never seen at an event before. It was just, honestly, it was fucking crazy. When you looked at the lights for the night flying, it looked like it was raining, and it was actually the pollen. Everybody was like, their eyes are watering, coughing. It was just crazy. We ended up actually leaving a little earlier than planned because it was just miserable because of the pollen. So that cut our night flying Saturday night a little bit short. But other than that, it was a good event. But I'd say probably the most, what just happened this past week would probably be the best thing is through one of the raffle sites, I ended up kind of last minute getting in, trying to win an OMP M6. And sure enough, I won it. Pretty happy.
I was going to say, it didn't sound like you won anything at Spring Fling this year. So, of course, you had to redeem yourself somehow.
Yeah, you're right, because they were joking at Spring Fling saying I wasn't allowed to buy any raffle tickets because I usually, my luck was too good down there, and they weren't going to let me try to win any of the helis. So yeah, I didn't win anything. On this.
I'm your bad luck charm. Any event I'm with you at, you don't win shit. Yeah, I don't go with you to one, and I don't understand. I've never seen you win anything, and I've been in 1 billion events with you. Yep. I do not understand it.
Well, you weren't with at Spring Fling at any win, so you're not totally my bad luck charm.
Yeah, that's the only one. Yep.
Yeah, but usually I do pretty good at Spring Fling. And then this raffle, I got this M6. The guy was super fast with the shipping. I received it yesterday already, got it out. He had it boxed up real good. So now I have an OMP M6 airframe to figure out how I want to set it up. I think I'm going to try to go lightweight 6S, try to make it a powerhouse on 6S, and go from there. But so it's been a pretty good couple of weeks. Got some RC drifting in. Got a lot of that stuff done as well. So getting a little bit better with the new car, getting it dialed in. Went to one night where at the local, well, not local, and almost 2 hours away from me, drift track, and hung out with about 20 other guys, getting some pretty good tandems in with guys that have been doing a lot longer, kind of getting to test my skills against them a little bit. And I was doing pretty good. I was holding my own. I was pretty happy with the results. But yeah, that's about it. That's kind of what's been new with me.
Nice.
So that being said, going to just kind of, we'll circle back around here to Enzo. We'll get him in, get some thoughts on some stuff, and we'll go from there. So Enzo, if you wouldn't mind, if you want to give us like a 2 or 3 minute, I guess you could call it your elevator speech of who you are, what you fly, drive, what your involvement is with RC, any of that good kind of stuff.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah, I obviously my name's Enzo, so I'm out of Maryland. Thanks for bringing me on. It's always a pleasure to chat with fellow RC enthusiasts. Always a good time. Yeah, I'm just a guy that races RC cars and flies helicopters. Having good times.
Nice. That's pretty
That's about
simple.
the simplest way that I could put it. But
Yeah.
no, I mean, all
Well,
jokes aside, I guess been in the hobby. If we're counting racing too,
yeah.
I started racing in the fall of 2009.
Okay.
And that was kind of what I took in a little bit before kind of coming back to flying. Yeah, just one of those kids that always, I guess, liked figuring out how stuff works, right? Taking stuff apart, weed eaters or whatever, and then wrenching on real cars with my dad.
Yeah.
We used to go to a lot of Volkswagen car shows on the East Coast. My dad had an 84 GTI, and we used to go everywhere. We went to like Englishtown and Ocean City back when like H2O was a thing. For any car enthusiasts who might remember those H2O days.
Nice.
Back when they were good.
That's right. And just that's kind of where the passion for, turning wrenches started, was there. And then, yeah, as a little kid, probably, I think it was like 2007 or 8, I walked into what used to be back then actual bookstores and in magazine stores, and I picked up a RC Car Action magazine. And
Ooh, I remember those.
Yeah.
Yep, and I kind of started, a little bit of passion with RC cars, and man, I kind of want one, and then, finally got one closer to that like 2008 range, kind of playing around in the backyard, doing some bashing, but really actually getting into racing was fall of '09 here at what still is my local track, which is the track in Gaithersburg, Maryland. And that's an indoor 10 scale off-road track that's like sealed clay. So it's full clay track, and they seal it with like soil tack. So it's like very high grip.
So
But yeah,
how old are you,
been
Enzo?
doing it since then. Say what now?
How old are you?
I'm 26.
26. Okay. I don't know
Ooh,
why.
you're a young buck.
Yeah, I actually thought you were older than that, to be honest. I didn't realize that.
I am 26. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, because I think one of the first times I think I met you, or I might have met you before that, but I know last year, was it the June event down in Ocean County, I think it was?
I think it was the spring one because I went to both.
Was it the spring one? I know one of them there, and because I had the camera out, I was trying to scumbag you and make you fly.
That's right.
Yeah, make you fly
That's
low
right.
and yelling
We
at
were
you.
with Andrew.
Yeah, yeah.
That's right.
We
Yeah,
had-
yeah. Andrew Lax and you were over there wanting me to chop up like one little bush that was like hanging on by deer thread
Yeah.
at Ocean County.
Because
Yeah.
he's always so quiet and laid back, and he actually started yelling in the background, and I thought it was funny when we got him cranked
Yeah,
too.
wow.
That was pretty
yeah,
good.
yeah, totally.
Yeah, and that's coming up here and again in a couple weeks, I guess.
That's right. Yep, I'll be there.
Yeah.
I'll be there.
I'm hoping to get there Saturday night again. Unfortunately, the way I work, probably get there that Saturday evening again. So, hopefully you'll still be there, and I can see if we can get some flights in, and I can annoy you with the camera again.
Yeah, no, totally. We'll have some good time. Should be good.
Break
I-
out the
I gotta-
bullhorn on them.
I got a question while this is on my mind. And this may be more of a question for Bob since you're a younger buck, Enzo, but you may know the answer. When you mentioned RC Car Action magazine, I remember reading those when I was in school. I used to have an old HPI. Oh hell, I don't remember an RS4 maybe, something like that. It was like an all-wheel drive
Nice.
street
The
car.
on-road car.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I used to
Was
read
it like
these-
the Subaru.
I think it had a Porsche body on it. But I remember reading the RC Car magazine, and I would always see these advertisements for like these nitrous looking boost bottle things.
Yep.
What-
I remember that.
Was that like a real
I do
thing?
remember that.
It
Did
was a real.
those-
That,
like, what
that
happened
was
to
a
that?
real thing.
Yeah.
I think I don't remember the brand might have been like Revolution something. I think.
Mhm.
But they also sold like nitro engine supercharger kits
Yep.
for like T Maxes. Like I
Oh, wow.
remember it was like a little baby air filter / like a blower, and it would go on to the air filter of the engine, and it was like I don't remember how the blower worked, if it was like battery operated, but it was like forced induction for a little tiny nitro engine.
Okay.
But I do remember the whole nitrous thing. I think they would just take like a CO2 cartridge, really, from like an airsoft gun or something.
I remember bugging the shit out of my mom trying to get her to order me a nitrous bottle for my car, but she wasn't having it.
Yeah.
So I never got to see if they worked or not.
All I know is they, when I saw them, and I saw one guy blow up 2 engines with them because it would basically over rev the shit out of them.
Yeah,
You would have an engine
yeah.
that's designed to run at, say, 35,000 RPMs, and you'd be at full throttle at full RPM, and you'd have it activated a different way. You'd have a third channel activation for servo, or you could have it to when it hit full throttle, it would actually activate for so much or something, almost like a nitrous injection,
Oh, wow.
whatever shot you would want. But you'd literally hear the engine at full RPM, and then you'd hear it go more. So you'd hear it spool up over and above. So you're basically taking the engine to its full mechanical limit, or just about there too, and then pushing it even harder. So it was basically a ticking time bomb. And
Those
if you
worked
did it-
okay
if
on
you did it
those
too many
3-speed
times-
Savages. They were kind of cool.
yeah,
I've seen them done right on those 3-speed Savages where you could rev them out and they would work pretty well. But good luck with anything HPI anymore.
yeah, but it would still take your engine, and it would make its life expectancy way less than what it should have been, for sure.
Yeah.
Just mechanical failures. But anyway, that answers your question.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
I will let Enzo get back to his.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, but I knew I was going to forget about that.
Yeah,
Michael
no.
see something
I
shiny and
remember
then
when
go on.
those came up.
But yeah. So when you said you said you were doing RC cars, and then you said you went back to helis. So did you do helis before cars?
So when I started racing in the fall of 09, at the time I had like a little Blade CX2, which was the red coaxial
Oh yeah.
helicopter. It was like a beginner Blade heli. And I was starting to get more into flying, and I was starting to like learn how to do like backwards and like all this fun, basic, like at the time was what I guess was considered like somewhat basic to intermediate, like light 3D, right? With like, a machine that can't go inverted. So I was just doing like sport flying. And I really liked helis, and I remember we ended up getting like a small little 450 size machine. My dad helped me put it together and kind of get it going with that. And I remember when I got into racing at that time, it was like, parents were like, it's either racing or helis. You got to pick one.
Yeah.
And I had to put helis down. So I put helis down around then, and I went all in with racing. Like it turned into like what started out as a hobby, kind of turned into somewhat of a career for a little over 13 or so years. I traveled all over the country. I raced pro, kind of went everywhere. But yeah, I didn't really get to do much flying, a little almost close to 10-year break. And then I think it's been a year and a half or 2 years ago, the last spring fling that Nick Maxwell was here. So I think that was not last year, but the one before. So 2 years ago now.
Okay.
That I went to that because one of my buddies, Jason, out of Long Island, Jason Pelletier, he's another racer. He's like, hey, we're going to this heli event. You should come, come hang out, come watch. You'll have a great time. And I was like, I don't know, I might go to a race or I might go practice. Like I was kind of all in with, with cars and setup and stuff, but I ended up going. And all it took was for me to stand, next to like Kyle Stacy on the flight line, or one of like Mitch Morozas or one of those guys, and you feel the blade thumps in your chest when you're standing next to those guys, and I was like immediately hooked. Like I was like, yep, I'm back. So from that moment forward was when I kind of started investing in equipment again.
So you went all in then, pretty much getting back into it.
Oh yeah, no, I went all in. I was like, yeah, this is something that, back in the day, there's no way I could afford it as a little kid. So, times have changed. Having your own gig kind of works out when you consider it in that regard. You can kind of afford bigger toys, so to speak. So, yeah, I made the kind of the plunge and jumped right back in full bore, and it was interesting. It was kind of like riding a bike, but a bike that goes in like 6 different orientations. So it was kind of interesting picking it all back up again.
Yeah.
How do you find time for both? Because it's interesting you say like I'm the same age as you. I'm 26, and just flying, working a real job, working your day job, and then flying helis can be like a full job in itself. So do you still race off road and fly helis and manage all that at once?
Yeah, I mean, I still race. I made the decision around the time that I got back into helis. Actually, after I got back into helis, I used to race a lot of 8 scale nitro in the summer. Obviously, summer comes around in the Northeast. It's outdoor season, so
My man, the
um,
good stuff.
I did a lot of nitro buggy, nitro truggy, and e buggy, like all over Pennsylvania, New York. We used to have so many more tracks back in the day, but like we had like Blue Diamond in Delaware. There was a place called Hobby Hut in PA.
Yep.
There was
Remember
another
those?
place called Mushroom Bowl in PA.
Yep.
There were so many tracks that we could go to back in the day, and we've really lost a lot of tracks in the Northeast, which is it's tough. It's the hobby industry is one that I think shop owners do out of the pure love for the hobby than it is a profit. But unfortunately, because of those reasons, these guys it was harder for them to keep the doors open. So we lost Mushroom Bowl, we lost Hobby Hut, Blue Diamond closed down.
Yep.
And I think the only tracks that we have left in this region are LCRC in Oakland Mills, PA. Then you have Trains and Lanes in Easton, PA. And then you have Barnstormers in New York. And I think that's like basically all you have in the Northeast.
Yeah.
And then I know further up north, and I want to say Connecticut, you have RC Madness.
Yeah.
But
there's one in
for
York.
the most part,
The
most part, like we really don't have too many locations to go race south of Philly, if you think about it. Like the Maryland guys, like all of my crew, all my buddies, like we all have to drive 2.5 to 3 hours just to go club race.
Yeah.
So
it's depressing hearing you say that, because I remember thinking back in the day, like even in Maryland, Nuclear RC, Extreme RC in Lancaster, there's so many. There's so many of these places that have closed.
You had one of the guys that I raced 10 scale with. He used to have a track. Tony West with Waldorf, like Waldorf RC used to have a track. Like there's so many locations we used to have.
You knew Tony?
What's that?
You knew Tony?
Tony West,
Yeah.
T-Dub? Yeah, I know Tony.
Yeah, sorry to hear that.
Yeah, he runs. I haven't seen Tony in a long time, but yeah,
I hope I don't see him in a long time. He's an asshole. I'm not afraid to say that. So, but that's a whole other story.
It sounds like you guys were kind of in the same area, Bob. I wonder if you or your son have ever raced with Enzo before and didn't even know it.
We might have crossed paths. I mean, we raced at Extreme quite a bit. I don't know if you ever raced there at all.
That was a little bit before my time.
Okay,
Extreme.
I know we raced Extreme, Nuclear, because it used to make a whole weekend event sometimes with those. And
Nuclear used to share a location with a flying field, didn't they?
Nuclear was on. I don't know if they shared.
That was Extreme.
Extreme
had
did with the flying field. Nuclear was on a waste site. They were right.
Yeah.
They were right
Perfect
inside
name.
off of was it 83? Right inside of Maryland, I think.
Yeah.
And then
there was also, and then, not to cut you off, but there was also another track, I think in like northern VA region called Awesome RC Hobbies.
Okay, that one I don't know about. Yeah, and then there used to be for indoor. It was bumps and jumps. I don't know if you're over there.
Yes, raced a lot of bumps and jumps. So I grew up in that building running 10 scale.
Really?
Yeah, running 10 scale on Sundays. Oval Saturday, 10 scale on Sundays.
Yeah, I used to go up there and race quite a bit up there. Knew Chris pretty well.
Yep.
Yeah, there was a bunch of so we probably crossed paths there too at some point.
It's very possible, yeah.
That's funny.
I feel so old with all the shops mentioned that have closed.
Oh
my god. I feel so old.
Were you ever up there when what's his name was promoting for Custom Works? Tony Stewart?
Tony Stewart, and then another one of my buddies met through traveling, Max Fleur. I'm sure you guys met Max.
I know the name.
He's a fast Custom Works. He was a Custom Works. He's a Custom Works driver.
Yep.
And did a lot of off road as well.
Yes, I did off road. I never did the oval. I got too bored trying to race any kind of oval. I just did the off road.
I could never do oval.
Yeah, I need to go right, left, and be able to fly the car for a little bit of entertainment.
Nothing against the oval guys, right? But it wasn't something that kind of called my name. I got to do that. It was more like, that's cool. But then I turn around and keep doing what I was doing.
Yeah. There's. No
I might piss a bunch of people off saying this, but it seems like the oval stuff was more for the older guys that really didn't have the hand-eye coordination. Because every time I've been to a track, it seemed like it was always an older, almost a senior crowd that would be racing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just it's a different I guess it comes more with like the racing culture, right? Like you look at some of the like old school like vintage tapes from like back in the 80s and 90s, like running gold pans and world's cars. Like back in the day, like paved oval was huge. Like there were a ton of tri-oval tracks all over the country. There was like a big I know there was like a big push for like land speed records with like modified oval cars back in the day. Like who had the fastest like 100-mile-an-hour car with brushed motors. Like I know that was a big thing.
Yep.
I think it just comes in like waves, right? Like early
Yeah.
2000s, like touring car was really big in this country. You know, off road was big too, but like 10 scale touring car was really big. Like Associated had like the TC3,
Oh yeah.
Losi had the Street Weapon. There were a ton of, you know, that whole era was kind of a thing. And then that started to fade out as like short course came alive, right? Like the Slash came out.
Yep.
Kyosho dropped the Ultima SC and like two wheel short course exploded. Like every track in this country had, you know, from an A main to like an F main in two wheel drive short course on club nights. It just took off.
It was crazy.
Yeah, and I think that short course honestly probably contributed to like the downfall of on road in a way because it attracted people into like new avenues of the hobby. So maybe guys that were like lifelong on road people, but maybe on Sundays with the family loved watching like the Lucas Oil off road series, you know, two wheel short course dropped and they were like, oh man, it's just like what we watch on TV. And then they got into off road and they stopped running touring. So yeah, I think it comes in waves. Everything in this hobby comes in waves.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you'll see.
I agree.
You'll see. I think the short course. I mean, it's been going since I think 2009 when the Traxxas Slash, first hit the scene. You know, the short course thing has been really strong. But yeah, like you said, peaks and valleys. It has. One thing's going really strong. Like most of my racing I did was a lot of nitro truggy, buggy and truggy, and then I did indoor bumps and jumps. I did a lot of short course like Slash. I used to love like the spec racing, the 2-wheel drive, brushed truck. Everything was the same, and it was just a driver class. It was a ton of fun.
It's funny. It's funny, Enzo, you mentioned that about the short course trucks potentially harming some of the off-road racing, because I 110% agree. I remember at the time coming from the off-road racing, moving to a 2-wheel drive mod buggy. At the time, it was like B4 and like B44s were super hot, the 4-wheel drive ones. And
right.
you'd watch the 2-wheel drive mod buggies, 4-wheel drive mod buggies rip, and you'd watch the stock Slash class go out, and you're like, okay, that's a bunch of bashers in one class. And that's honestly what always kept me away. It was a bash fest. You'd go watch these mod buggies drive, and they're on rails for the most part. 90% of the races are clean. They're a much faster type of racing. The Slash has brought out the guys that were, they're dipping their lip. The ping. Let's go, buddy. Let's go do some off-road racing. And it definitely brought out the different crowd, and I think it definitely did hurt the off-road. So it's funny you mention that, because I've never really heard anyone else say that, but I definitely agree on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it it brings in a different avenue of folks, right? Like it's more of I'd consider it more of a beginner class, something to get guys in, maybe similar to like how in the heli world, micros bring new guys in. Short course was that equivalent, right? Like it was something that you could buy ready to run, for the most part, run the novice class or the rookie class at any local track and get thrown into a heat with 8 or 9 other guys that are all of the same skill level. And you can get your start into racing for, I think at the time, what was it? Traxxas was selling that truck ready to run for like $260 or $250 at the time.
Something like that.
Maybe even a little bit less than that.
Yeah.
So it was like an affordable entry point, because I mean, we're talking back then, I mean, to build like a fully loaded like B4.2, or at that time's B4.1, so like B4.1 or B44, I mean, you're looking at like $1,500 investment to jump into like a properly set up 10 scale car.
And I equate the difference as flying like the Slash is the equivalent of flying a 747. And when you're running a B44 or B41, whatever, that you're flying like a fighter jet, so it definitely brings the more serious racers in for the mod buggy stuff, which I loved.
Yeah, no, totally. But I think it definitely brought a lot of people in, which was good, because at that time, like I remember my local 10 scale track was making a lot of sales off a short course, so it definitely helped with keeping the doors open. It helped with making sure that like my track was making sales on parts and kits and stuff to keep the money circulating within the industry was important. And I think ultimately short course did that for many years. It kind of like ruled the game in 10 scale for bringing new people in. So yeah, I mean, but yeah, we've been around a while. We've kind of gotten to appreciate 10 scale from transitioning from rear motor tub plastic cars and plastic chassis 4-wheel drive and carbon cars all the way up to like mid motor stand up and now lay down cars for off road. So I've kind of got to appreciate like all of the evolution with design in the past 14 plus years now.
That's cool.
It's kind of crazy to see how far 10 scale off road developments come.
Yeah, how far all of it's come for sure. RC in general. Yeah,
just RC in general. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. So shifting gears a little bit, kind of switching over to helis, and I got to ask this because I know Michael want to know the big question: what's your favorite, electric or nitro?
120% nitro 700.
Really? Okay.
My man.
Yeah, for me, I maybe it comes from the background from having run a lot of 8-scale nitro buggy and just I guess the rush of basically racing the equivalent to motocross without the hospital bills. But it's I don't know, I like nitro, man. When you get a properly tuned in 105 or 91 speed or YS, whatever you like flying, it's just you get the tune nailed on one of those things and it kind of gives off the vibes of like smacking around a 125 around the track. It gives you that like full on sensation of it like speaking to you. Like you beat on it too hard, it starts to bog. You let it breathe, you get the smoke trail that comes back. It kind of tells you what it likes and doesn't like throughout the flight. And I don't know. That's kind of how racing buggy was too.
That's a good way to put it. The 125 around the track. That's pretty much where my mind goes. Like, yeah, it's like like just that 125 versus riding a 450. If you're on a 450, you just rip right through whatever you want.
Totally.
But
see, that's why I like the electric stuff because I grew up driving a YZ490. So we like the power.
The Nitro 700s is similar. Well, it's like an electric 700, but for grown-ups, Bob.
Oh, nice. Okay.
See, I take a slightly different approach. I already have enough problems with my real drift car that has a gas motor. I just want to take the simple approach with heli stuff. Let me have a nice simple 6 or 700 setup, no tuning, because there's already enough messing with the real drift car that I'm good. I like the heli stuff to be as simple as possible, but I do completely understand your points where, it does speak to you, where the electric doesn't. You get that battery sag and you're like, oh, shit, just got to land. There is no recovering. So I totally understand that.
Yeah. I think I kind of swayed on it when I broke into it to a whole nother topic of conversation, but you had asked me how I managed with racing and flying at the same time. And I meant to answer that, and we kind of broke away into a whole nother conversation. So my apologies on that.
That's what happens. We get talking.
That's pretty typical of our show.
That's fun.
Yeah, no. Yeah, so going back to that for a brief moment, when I got back into flying, I stopped racing 8-scale because of everything that we talked about how far everything was. As you could imagine, driving 2.5 hours each way to go club race, you'll get burned out within the first month. So I basically put up 8-scale because of that, got rid of all my gear, and now kind of my program, so to speak, is, helis as soon as it gets nice out with spring. In the summer, enjoy the outdoors, and then as soon as the fall rolls around and it starts getting a little bit too cold to be outside, that's kind of when I go full bore with 10 scale off road again.
Nice.
So I just wanted to answer that because I totally forgot to do that when we were chatting a little bit earlier.
Yeah, I mean it's a good thing definitely to circle back to, especially. It can be, you mentioned the price of one of those chassis. You can run with electronics up to $1,500. So I ask too, because it can be tough, managing the helis, managing the cars. We're both 26, working the job, just trying to financially be able to do both and succeed in both can be very challenging. Helis, you can get away with running, maybe a cheaper part here, but when you're racing at the level it sounds like you're racing at, especially with those mod buggies, you're not cheaping out on anything. I mean, you're constantly racing on a knife's edge. So it's definitely interesting how how you will support both, and how at a young age you can support both. So I commend you for that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Yeah, from the age that I got into racing, it still is, but it was at the time like the biggest passion that I had. I made a lot of cuts to make sure that I could go to races. I missed out on a few things, I guess, like quote unquote for my age, right? My age group. I know I missed senior prom because I was at a nationals. I was like halfway. I was like halfway across the country at a national event, like competing, and all my buddies were at prom. But looking back on it, zero regrets because just everything that it's led to, meeting so many people, having done it at the level that I'm fortunate I was able to do it. It opened the doors to a lot of things that I didn't think were going to come with it. Right, just relationships met, friends that end up turning into mentors with my career now, or just you name it, right? Like skills that we learned from dealing with people, whether it be communication or sales or whatever it might be, those soft skills that you learn from being in those social settings and events, speaking to people all the time, are things that you later on maybe get to apply in your career path. So if it wasn't for racing, maybe I wouldn't have been able to pick up all the things that I did, so to speak. So no regrets, but I definitely made a lot of sacrifices in terms of, removing things that I felt I didn't want to do just so I could go fly to a race, X month or whatnot, or maybe not going on this trip or whatnot, just to be able to make ends meet to buy tires and equipment to go to the following race. I mean, it's hard to describe unless you've met someone that does it like that, but I know people, probably not a good example, but I know people that like have gone into serious debt racing 8 scale because it turns into, there's a difference between a passion and an addiction, right? It's very easy to go down that rabbit hole in the hobby, but I've met people that have gotten into like serious financial issues because of racing, right? And taking it so serious, like investing, traveling, hotels, air tickets, you know what I mean? Going everywhere. It adds up.
Yeah, and then they go crazy because some of the guys, unfortunately, the downfall can be what we started running into is we'd go to these races, and it was very competitive with the outdoor at Extreme. It was a big track, lots of really good close racing, but some of the guys were racing like they were racing for like a $10,000 purse at the end of the day.
Yeah.
On a weekend race, we were getting, I think, a certificate for free racing, in the future. So that was really what you were winning. Yeah. It wasn't, there was cash races and stuff as well, but in a regular club race, there wasn't really anything to win other than a pat on the back with an attaboy and, here's a gift certificate for, your $15 free entry fee for next week.
And the problem for guys to win those races, guys were buying, I still remember specifically in that era, guys were buying, the OS VZBs. They were getting Dave Bridges to port them out, mod them out, and they're spending disgusting money on a motor that might last them a weekend. And at that time, I was running, I think I had the quote unquote expensive motor for me at the time. I was running like an RB. And I remember you, Dad, you were running like some off-no piece of shit.
I had Maneuver Rossi.
Going racing.
I had Maneuver Rossi, and then you had the RB.
Yes, and guys in that time, they're blowing motors constantly. And I remember me and you, it's funny you bring it up how, financially making it to a race, you might be going, ooh, how am I going to afford tires or how afford this? Because there was times, specifically, I remember you, Dad, you were going through and you'd be rolling your flywheel over going, oh, fuck, this thing's really low compression. I wonder if I can, and you'd be crimping the piston just for a little more compression for another event.
Yeah.
Just to get it through to the end of the season or 2 more events. And it's like, oh, the bills are looking tight. We really got to make this work. And I remember you crimping pistons often just to make them work.
Yep. Yeah, but a whole set of these different things at the time. I don't know if you remember that, Enzo. It was a big thing with them. You had those little crimpers you could put a little extra squeeze on the sleeve, put the sleeves back in there, and you get a little bit more out of it.
People still do that. They get sleeves repinched. It's like a special tool that you put the sleeve into, and it's like it's almost like a press where when you like start to add pressure, there's like a ton of pins that go all the way around the sleeve, and when you start to crank pressure on it, I think it's like a hydraulic tool, it'll equally provide pressure on every single pin. So when it squeezes the sleeve inward, there's no like ovaling, or you don't like
Yep.
warp the sleeve. It's like an equal pressure inward, and they'll pinch them a few thousandths, right? And then you got to break your engine in again. But you basically have a little bit more life. Guys still do that.
I had a low tech version of that. It was basically a big O ring where it was on 2 bolts on either side, and you just had to slowly bring them into whatever you thought you needed to be at, and kind of go from there. So I had several different sizes of them, and I would make it work. And I also worked I worked a part-time job just for our heli or our RC stuff to keep us racing. Keep us
So
going.
you guys know very well what it's like once you get the bug
Oh yeah,
on how it can add up. Yeah.
yeah. But like you
That
said,
was
lots
me.
of cool experiences with lots of cool people that we got to meet over the years, and it's brought us, when we look back, a lot of really neat experiences for sure.
So when you were younger, Enzo, when you got into the hobby with racing, were you doing this? Because again, you said you got into it at 2009, young age. Were you racing with your father? Were you racing with family? Were you racing with anyone? Like, who actually got you into the racing portion and exposed you to that? And also at that age, because I know my dad here financially supported me through all my off-road racing. Were you at a young age supporting yourself with all that racing as well?
Right. So around the time that I got into it, I never did it with my dad. Not because he didn't want to or whatnot. It just wasn't like of an interest. I don't even think that's the right way to word it. I don't know. I would just get dropped off at the track. And they liked it. Like, they thought it was cool. And when they'd come pick me up, they'd hang out for a few hours and chat with some of the locals and watch me do laps and stuff. But it was never something that I got into it as like a father and son team. Only a few times has Pops come to the track to hang out, and it's fun. It's always a good time. But from that time, it was really me, I guess, that I got like the itch to compete. And it was right around that time that I went to the track the first time, right? Like when I discovered that we had the track, it was from the RC Car Action magazine that I had gotten a couple years prior, before I was like exposed to the world of racing. Because until then, it was just like backyard bashing. So back then on the Car Action magazines, you used to have a track directory on the back of the magazine.
Yep.
And it had a list of all the tracks in the country, their contact info, the phone number, and the address, and the name of the owner. And
Cool.
I saw the track there. I saw the track in Gaithersburg, and I was like, I'm going to give him a call. So I gave him a call, and track owner Mimi Wong, she's still going at it to this day. She's an OG, but she picked up, and she's like, yeah, we're on, I think it's, what is it? Been going there, like I said, 15 years. Don't even remember the address by heart, but I think it's like 16806 Oakmont in Gaithersburg. And I was like, okay, I'll go. And I went on a Wednesday night, which is a club night. To this day, it still is Wednesday nights and Saturdays. And I went on a club night after school. And like I said, I walked in, and at the time, this was before our track went to dirt. So Mimi used to run the track as an on-road track for many years, as a carpet on-road track, carpet bank to oval, and then towards the very end, it was asphalt, indoor paved asphalt. And it used to be an on-road track. But when I walked in, this was right around like that short course boom era. So it was asphalt with plywood jumps, like a skate park. And that was the track on top of the asphalt, right? But I saw the guys going around, and kind of the competing factor of it, and just, seeing how everyone was working on the cars. And I felt like I was at a Formula One race. So you could imagine the itch was like immediately there. And then, as I started, originally, my parents kind of helped me out when I was a kid, right? So they would help me out with a few sets of tires and a couple tools, and, just kind of getting into it a little bit early in light, right? Because we didn't have the most budget to just jump all in. So I did it that way for a good amount of my, I guess, youth, so to speak. I think it was 2013 or 2014? Yeah, I think it was 2013, could be. It was like 2 or 3 years after I started racing. I ended up signing my first contract with Proline. And that was my first sponsorship, was after I had made the main at the Rural Regionals at our track. And I kind of, back then, to be sponsored, you kind of had to be fast. They wouldn't put you on the team, just for being a representative. You had to be competitive.
Back when the
So
sponsorship
I
actually
know,
meant something.
yeah, like it meant a lot to get on the team. And at the
Absolutely.
time, I was a little kid, so I would always ask these managers, November 1st is quote unquote contract season within it when it comes to the racing industry, right? From November to the end of December is contract season. And this is normally when all the teams, sponsor folks or bring guys in or whatever. So I had to remember that leading up to this, like I think a year before, I had started like reaching out to managers, and you could imagine like this little punk kid like emailing you on how do I join the team, because I really wanted to get to that point. And back then, like a lot of fast guys from New Jersey would come down. I don't know if you remember Gunnar Reich and his dad. They used to run Team Associated cars. They used to race a lot at Family Hobbies in New Jersey.
Yeah, I'm not familiar
Um,
with them.
yeah, so Gunnar was one of them. You had Mike Gay, which was a teammate of his, Alex Miller. And then from the New York region, you had like Anthony Mazzara. He was another big name in this area. So like all these guys would come in for our big races, and I'd see them all decked out in like team gear, right? Like the Associated guys had the blue sponsored shirts with all their sponsors on their shirt, their name on their back, and I was like, man, I really want to get to that. Like I wanted to do that when I was a little kid. I would see them like with the decked out like $1,500 cars back in like 2011, and I was like, man, these guys got it good. You know what I mean? Like they'd have like the nicest LRP gear and Reedy and all top fledged equipment, and I'm like this little Chuck kid running like ready to runs, mixed with like used hand me downs like B4s and Kyosho cars as well. So when I finally got there and I ended up getting my first sponsorship with Proline, you could imagine it was like I had reached the top. I felt.
Yeah.
And that's when things started to get a little bit easier. I'm happy that I had a lot of mentors when I was starting to race that helped me develop a lot of my racecraft. I got a lot of guys that had competed at the high regional and state level. Not too many of the national level folks, just quite at that moment. But they kind of helped me develop some early racecraft, right? Like how to hold a good line, focusing on consistency, and just kind of developing my driving style, and helping me craft that speed. So when I finally started to put my results out and throw elbows more with some of the bigger names, I started to get a little bit more recognition from some of these team managers. And Daniel Adams from Proline put me on. And from that moment forward, I know a lot of smaller, little startup type companies, like some of the guys that used to like sell their own batteries and stuff, like they'd give me a couple packs, and it started to get a lot easier from that moment forward. So I started to get a lot more support with sponsors, and that made it easy. But at the beginning, it was definitely a lot of help from my parents. And I mean, you can ask anyone that I race with. I mean, at some points on club nights, I would be the type of kid to go to the trash can and grab tires out of the trash and run them until the insert showed.
Yeah, make it work.
Because I didn't have cash to go buy, $50 to $60 sets of tires at the time, that were treaded. And as soon as the treads wore down, you had to glue up another set. And I didn't have the funds like that.
Yep.
To be able to just continue to glue up tires like it was nothing. So I had to make it work. And I think because of that, it kind of taught me to drive on a bad car. Like I kind of grew up having to rough it out with the gear that I could afford. So I kind of learned how to drive like a 2-wheel drive mod buggy, a 2-wheel drive mod short course, 4-wheel mod buggy with sometimes like not the best equipment or not the best setup or not the best tires. So when I finally started to get all the support, and I actually had the tires now, or I had better electronics, like it felt like I was increasing, my speed way quicker, because now I actually had half decent equipment to get me around the track really well. And I didn't have to like rough it out with clapped out tires or something,
Yeah, learning.
It's really
learning how to
refreshing.
make. Go ahead.
It sounds like you took the natural progression of getting into it for the love of it, racing, getting noticed, and taking your sponsors that route. where all too often I see newer people getting into the hobby. I worked at a hobby shop alongside with my dad here for about 9 years, and we'd see people get into the hobby, race for a year, or be 6 months into their first year racing and already begging for sponsorships, begging for free product, begging, and a lot of guys that I've seen get into it have the goal of, they have the intent already to get sponsored, right off the rip. And I think that's the problem now. Is I think a lot of these guys can certainly devalue sponsorships with the little representative position. So it's really refreshing to hear you took the natural route of being into it. It sounds like you were into it many years before you even pursued sponsors, and kind of took the natural route. Because too many guys now, they just they think sponsorship, and same with helis as well. So that's really nice to hear.
Yeah, I mean, it's and we've had these exact same conversations with some of my buddies that I grew up racing with back then, and they've seen those changes in the industry, right? Like I said, back then, like a team manager wouldn't even look at you if you weren't even in the top 12 to 15 grouping at the regional level. Like if you were going after a chassis sponsorship, for example, with say Kyosho, back then at the time, another good buddy of mine that I ultimately later in my RC career got to race for him under Yokomo, but at the time when he was on Kyosho, was the team manager was Joe Pillars, and Joe Pillars was the team manager for Team Kyosho International, and he was based out of the West Coast. But for example, Joe Pillars wouldn't even look at you or look at potentially even considering putting you on the team as a 50 guy, like a 50% sponsorship with racing, until you were a big name in the region. You had to be able to show up to a track that you had never been to. For example, let's just say bumps and jumps, and throw your car down in the morning for practice, figure your setup out, make changes, and by the mid qualifying to the end of qualifying, be sitting top 3 on a Sunday, and then just clean up house in the main to even be considered of hey, yeah, I'm going to put this guy on the 50% team. Whereas nowadays, I've even noticed this with racing, a lot of the ways that things have gone with racing, that, as if the guy has a pulse and a credit card, he's on the team.
Yeah.
And,
Yep.
I understand that these companies need to make sales. They got to keep the doors open. They need to keep product moving, or else they're not going to be able to keep the doors open. But there's a thin line between, having what I would consider high level talent worth on the team, and then just having field representatives. And it's nothing against the lesser skill level drivers, but ultimately I think that if a company, and this is the way that I was taught, with Joe, for example, when Joe would give me feedback at the time when I was a little kid, if a company is going to put their logo on your t-shirt when you go to a race, you need to, sponsorship isn't a game. It's almost it basically is a job. You have to take it serious, because you're not just there getting a discount going around the track. You are representing a company. It is not a game. So that's the mentality that I grew up racing 10 scale with, because that's what it was like back then. You would get these Car Action magazines and see write-ups for the Cactus Classic or Dirt Nitro Challenge and all these big races, and you'd see guys like Tebow, Mayfield, Cavalieri, Travis Amescua, all these big factory names, and all of those 15 guys in the A-main were world level talent, man. None of those guys would show up to a track and finish last. If anything, they put you 3 laps down in a qualifier, top level talent. So that's what I grew up racing with. So you could imagine, as the years have gone by, and I see, more and more of these young kids that start racing, and a year or two in, their t-shirt looks like a billboard, man. They're loaded with sponsor 5%. Decals. Yeah, they're loaded with sponsor logos. They run for all these teams, and then you watch them go around the track, and they could barely finish a qualifier. Their car's falling apart. They have a ton of DNFs. Again, I'm not trying to put the young guys down, or trying to shame any of the young kids that are trying to go after it, but you have to understand that back then it was a different mentality with competitive racing. like in RC in general. It was a different mindset. It was, take this as serious as a job. And that was the mentality that I grew up doing it. So as I started to progress and I started to get more support from all these teams and some of the different sponsors that I ran for throughout all these years, every time I represented these companies or signed a contract with them, like I took it that serious, right? Like when I was at a race, I always made sure my pit area was super clean. I always tried to make sure that all my equipment was cleaned. Like if you look at my 2-wheel drive right now and I take the body off of it, you could eat off that car. Like everything's clean. I don't like having sloppy equipment. Like I don't like having my cars dirty. Like, but that's what it was like. Sponsored folks back then, you'd show up and equipment had to be done in the way where it represented the image of that company professionally. And that's kind of the mindset that I grew up going to races with, was that when you show up to a race, your gear's got to be clean, presentable, your pit area's got to be clean, can't be sloppy, and then be approachable. Like when folks come up to you and they're like, hey, my car's a little bit loose, what could I change? Help them, be a good rep.
That's the biggest thing right there is being approachable, being nice, and being respectful to people. That I always thought was a big thing. Even if your driving was okay, but if you were willing to help people, willing to do everything, and willing to like really help people advance, it always made a big difference in my mind as to what type of person you were. It said a lot about your character, I think.
Yeah, and like I said, it was something that, not only myself took it that way, but most of the other, high level sponsored individuals from, this region or the Northeast at the time also had that same attitude.
Yeah.
So, like I said, guys like Gunnar Reich and his dad, very professional, like I said, they'd show up and their pit area was always clean. Their cars like always in top fledged form. If you needed help, those guys would help you out. Or sometimes back then it was more common. Nowadays, not too much, but back then teams were a little bit more keen on giving like their really fast, like factory level folks like parts to test. So sometimes it wasn't uncommon that I'd go to a race when I was a kid, and if I broke something or I didn't have the part, I'd go up to them. And sometimes instead of giving me the replacement like caster block or steering block for my car, like maybe I even got a prototype part that they had in their box and they were like, here, you can have it. So those are the small things that nowadays you don't really get to see too much. And I think racing has definitely changed over the years and it's not what it used to be. But yeah, I mean, that you guys can probably already get to picture. I mean, I was all in and committed to this, like as if it was a full-time job, and I was only a kid at the time. So I did it that serious for, like I said, I think it's been over 14 years now.
Yeah.
But it was cool.
Well, now with your helis, and I'm embarrassed to say I honestly don't know, but do you have any sponsors for flying helis? Are you part of any team or anything with that at all?
I am. And it's kind of funny how that played out. To be honest with you, when I got back into flying, I never would have pictured that would have happened. Originally, when I got into it, I was all from the get-go, like 120%, already set on I wanted to have all SAB stuff. Like, right. I've always liked how the SAB machines look, the quality, the craftsmanship, the fit and finish that you get out of them. And I just naturally gravitated towards all SAB equipment. And then when I went to my first spring fling event, Kyle was there. And me and him kind of started talking and hit it off. And long story short, we ended up meeting up here in Maryland and we started flying together. And the rest was kind of history, man. I started progressing and getting back into the swing of some of the stuff that I used to do, before I stopped flying, and having him as that mentor in that environment, so to speak, with all the local flying that we did. He's always, if I ask him a question or ask for feedback with a maneuver, he's always given me feedback. And one thing led to the other, and he asked me if I maybe wanted to join the SAB team. And at first, my racing mindset kind of kicked in when he asked me that question. And for a moment I was like, am I even really like to the point where I deserve to be on a chassis team with a helicopter team? That was kind of the first question that like came across my my mind when he asked me to be on. But he insisted, and he was like, no, you represent and you help people, and you're doing what you got to do. So if you want to be on, I can see what I can do, and
He
that
knows a
kind of
guy.
led to me joining SAB as was on their factory team.
Okay, I thought you were, but I wasn't 100% sure. Honestly, just because when I see you fly, and I've said this before on the show, you don't always have the full SAB entourage with you. And I think you know what I mean when you see the events, because like when Kyle goes and flies, you got 20 people that run out there, with him to fly.
Yeah, the crowd.
You probably fly more than anybody in an event that I've ever seen.
I would say he probably doesn't have the entourage because they just get tired of getting up and sitting back down and getting
Maybe.
up and sitting back down.
How many flights a day would you say at an average event would you fly?
Over 20.
Okay.
Oh wow.
Wow. Holy shit.
Yeah.
A good day for me at an event, I'm 6 or 8. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I kind of have the racing mindset when it comes to that. Like, I'm used to going to races and making setup changes and throwing my car back out there in a practice session. So I'm used to like thrashing on my gear, making a change, and then running back in line at like these national events because you only have so much time to get your car dialed in. So I'm used to making changes, jumping back in line, getting a 2-minute session in, pulling your car, running back, making more changes, get back in line, do it again all day. So I have that like mindset of if I want to practice something or get something down, I just like going back to back to back to back. So I like to have like packs charged, ready to go by the time I get back to the table, or refuel the nitro and find another cone and keep going. Like if I'm trying to progress or trying to learn something, I'm a firm believer in repetition, I guess.
No, because that's
I think when you're still, not that you're fresh into the heli hobby, but you're relatively newer, compared to what you spent in the car world. You're still eager, like you're still learning maneuvers. You're still, it's easier to put that kind of flight time in when every time you fly, you're learning something.
Yeah, no, you definitely. I'll say that I've definitely had to catch myself a few times where like maybe I get a little bit lazy, and I'm like, I'll kind of hang out, chat with the guys, but then it kind of hits me, and I'm like, I gotta get flights, so I just get up and go, go find another cone.
Nice. Yeah, at the meet event, being lazy and just hanging out and watching people fly and shooting shit with everybody I don't normally get to see.
That's normally me on a Saturday, I will say. Like on a Saturday for spring fling, I try to do less flights because I want to make sure that by the time night flying comes around, I'm not like mentally drained to where I can't focus and put in a good flight. I'll say that on Saturdays, I try to actually keep it a little bit lighter during the day so I can go harder at night.
What did you think of that Saturday night at the spring fling with that pollen?
It didn't bother me as bad as I thought it was going to, and I have like huge allergy issues, so it actually.
I'm surprised.
I think the fact that it was windy and like didn't let the pollen like sit in the air like a nitro cloud where it just sits there and it doesn't go anywhere. I think the fact that it was like blowing it across the field probably made it not bother me. Maybe I know that sounds so ass
You're one of the only
backwards,
ones.
It's definitely something that was interesting. Now the wind was kind of brutal on Saturday night.
Yeah, it got a little rough because when you looked up into the lights, it looked like it was raining. For the pollen being so bad, it was crazy. I think Lamont took a video of it. It was nuts.
Yeah, it was wicked. I think Lamont put that video up on the Hangout, and he was like, "That ain't rain, guys. That's freaking pollen."
Yeah.
He didn't say that though. He said something else. But
yeah, you can say it. I don't care.
You can swear on the podcast. It's okay. We drop it.
But yeah, it was absolutely crazy, and it got cold, and it was windy, and the pollen. And I think it was like 10:30 Saturday night. I went, "Yep, I'm done throwing in the towel. I'm not that committed."
Yeah, no, it was wicked. But yeah, no, I love that event. That to me is like my if you guys watch any Supercross, that's like my Anaheim 1. That's like my season kickoff, because to me that was like the first the first event that I went to watch coming back to Helly's, right?
Yeah.
When I went to go and just hang out. So to me, when that event comes around, it kind of is like, I'll think to myself, I remember when I came here and I didn't have anything, like I didn't have any gear. I just came to hang out.
We've
So
been
to
going
me,
down
when that
there.
event comes around, it's like, I gotta go.
We've been going down to that field since, Aaron, do you remember, was it 2012? 2013?
I think 2013 was my first year.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that we
that's when
went
I went down
there.
to Met Sal for the first time, and oh my god,
Yeah, because we went to
that's
it was a
been
spring
forever.
fling, they called it, and then they had they called it something else in the fall. It wasn't their fall mowdown. They called it the Heli something or other. I can't remember now what it is, but they changed the name of that one. But yeah, it's a great field. It always has been. Like Sal and the guys have always been amazing at that one. So I love going
Yes.
there
Yeah,
for
no,
sure.
some great things have for me so far in the heli world have come from being at that Fredericksburg event,
Yeah,
right? Either it be the spring fling or the mowdown. Because I know the year that, well, last year, right, when I think it was fall or a little bit before then, when Kyle brought me into the SAB team, and we ended up going to mowdown. Sean Hall from Heli Direct was there, and I'll never forget it. It was kind of funny. I just was doing my own thing with at the time I had my Raw 700 electric, and I just did my normal flight. Didn't feel like it was anything too special, but definitely pushed it a little bit. And when I turned around, Sean was like right behind me, and he was like, "What's your name, dude?" And I'm like, "Oh, here we go." Like, and I say that jokingly in the sense that I felt like he was going to ask me to join, and then sure enough, like immediately it's like, "Hey, do you want to join Heli Direct?" And I'm like, "Well, if you're offering, then let's see what where this leads." So that it was kind of, I never, to be honest with you, like I said, coming back to it, I never thought that I would end up joining teams or anything like that. But to be honest with you, it's been a pretty wicked ride in the sense of how many people I've met. Kyle and all the SAB guys, Kerry Brooks,
yep,
Steve Yoon. I mean, I'm missing so many guys out, but then as well as the folks on the Heli Direct team, Sean's been super cool. He brought me in with them and ended up also running the pulse packs and the torque servos. So that's what I have in all my gear. And I've met so many cool people already from coming into the heli world. It's been pretty incredible how many folks I've been acquainted with since then. Since that short, what is it, a little over a year and a half, 2 years now since I went to that first spring fling event. So
yeah.
it's wicked.
Now, did you do Urcha last year?
I did.
You
I
did.
did
Okay.
my very first Urcha was last year.
Okay. I couldn't remember if I saw you there or not last year. Honestly, I see so many people say hi and walk around,
I
but I don't
did.
remember.
I did my first Urcha last year, and kind of going back to the time when I had been fooling around with that coaxial heli and had to put helis down. Back then, like you'd see, and this was like early YouTube, the old videos of Urcha, right? Like with
Hmm.
Run Rider, and some of the footage on Heli Freak, and I would see coverage from back then. And fast forwarding to now, I never would have thought that I would go to that same event where I saw those videos of like Zabo or like Lucas Rivas and all those guys throwing down. So when I went to Urcha last year, it was like one of those kind of like bucket list type moments where I was like, man, it's cool to finally be here, to be able to experience what like the Urcha is about. And it was a blast. It was very cool. I made the trek out alone. It's like 9.5 hour drive,
Yep.
and it was cool. Got to fly in my first what was it, Battle of the Midnight Sun last year. I think I made it down to the top 5 pick before they picked out Ben Storick as the winner.
Okay.
I flew my Kraken on that one. I did my orange Kraken S700.
Yeah, I don't remember
And
enough
that's
of
what I
that.
flew.
We might have been drinking a little bit of alcohol that night, but
It's
Yeah.
all good. Liquid courage.
That's right. That's what it was. We
Yeah,
were
that's why I
having some
say
fun.
this year you gotta have me not drink on Saturday night so I can actually do that
Get you
because
doing flying.
that was brutal.
Yeah, we'll get you in there or something. That's for sure.
So are you planning on going this year, Enzo?
I'd like to. Just kind of depends on work. but I'd like to. I would like to go back to IRCHA again. If I don't go to IRCHA, to be honest with you, if I don't make it to IRCHA, I really would like to try and replace that with Heli X, but all up in the air. All depends on work and some obligations outside of the hobby. So I'll have to kind of tiptoe as we get closer to the date.
Adult life, doesn't it suck?
That's right. It does.
Yeah.
It does suck.
Adulting can suck. That's why I always told the kids, man, as you get older, it's not all it's cracked up to be. All the responsibilities take away from all your fun time.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
you get cooler toys when you get older.
You do.
That
Oh,
is
yeah.
that is the better part.
So
You just don't have time to play with them. That's all.
That's how it works.
one other question I have for you yet is, so in the flying, there's a lot of buzz about all the different systems that are out, as far as controllers, flybarless, and everything else. What's your system of choice for flying for your flybarless?
100% V bar.
Okay, so you didn't drink the Kool-Aid to start doing that other Radio Master or whatever the other system
nothing
is.
Nothing against Radio Master or none of the open source systems. I with the limited time that I have, period, to be able to mess with stuff, I need simplicity and being able to program my stuff on the fly from my radio immediately, make changes, and keep going.
Nice.
Like, I want to just get flights in.
It works.
I started when I got back into it. I had Spectrum and Icon, and Spectrum and Icon was cool. Like, it, not knocking it. It's, I think, if anything, Spectrum and Icon is a nice gateway into flying because, like, you guys, I'm sure Jeff West. Jeff has a ton of helpful, like, how to program videos with Icon, and if you get into the hobby, you could find a how to set up an Icon 2 or a Brain 2 with somewhat of a similar helicopter. Like, if you built, say, for example, an SAB Raw 420, and let's just say he doesn't have the video on how to do the 420, on its own, but he has one on the Goose Sky RS4, like, you might be able to copy some of the processes and apply it to your machine and probably be okay. So there's a decent amount of support for the Icon system for new folks. That as soon as I switched and I ended up getting a radio off of Joe Reyes, I think. Yeah, it was Joe. He hooked me up with one of his old classics. And I got like a Neo off Mikado USA. And from the moment that I set up the heli and went to go fly, it was like night and day. And I haven't looked back since.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, if it works for you, it works for you. It's whatever you're comfortable with. That makes a big, big difference for sure.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I love the system. I've had good results with it. And, when I switched to it originally, I wanted to make sure the system was kind of for me, like, within quotes, kind of, it was something that I wanted to invest in. So I ended up, like I said, I got to use radio first. And then once I knew that I was going to stick with V-Bar, this was right around the time that Brian with Mikado USA brought in the Touch Evo. And I bought my Touch Evo radio, I think it was like maybe 6 or 7 months after having bought my Classic. So almost in like December, the start of the new year, I bought my new radio. And like I said, now I'm the Classic Touch Evo, and I think it's, 2, 4, 6, 7 Neos in. So we're not going anywhere.
Yeah, nice. All right. Well, that covers most of what I wanted to kind of go over. I mean, we could probably keep going because there's so much that you've done within RC. But
yeah, I'm game.
We're running long, so rather than bore everybody, and maybe this would be one we could always pick up another time too, for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Aaron,
always
Mike,
down to chat.
Do you guys have anything else you want to ask Enzo that we haven't hit?
No, I think I like the kind of the deep dive into the racing world because that's something that I've never been a part of. So I always enjoy kind of hearing the stories and be able to compare the racing hobby to the heli and the flying hobby as well. So that was good. I was a little quiet just because I was just taking it in. But I think we definitely should bring Enzo back and kind of dig a little bit more into for such a young dude, he seems to have quite a extensive resume in the RC world. So I think we could definitely do another one of these.
Oh, absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely.
for sure. Cool. Well, thank you, Enzo. We appreciate you coming on the show with us tonight and just kind of
Yeah,
shooting the
thank
shit
you.
with us and jumping around and all our different questions of racing, helis, and all the kind of good stuff.
Yeah, no, like I said, thank you guys for bringing me on. Yeah, it was fun and always down to chat more about racing or flying or anything. So yeah,
Cool.
I had a good time.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to do some more, and I guess hopefully I'll see you in, was that maybe like 2 weeks? I think is that at the
It is. I think it is 2 weeks.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
2 weeks for the Ocean County one.
if all goes well, hopefully I'll see you that Saturday night. Because like I said, I have to work, so if I leave work immediately, it takes me about 2 hours to get there. So till I get there and kind of hang out for a little bit Saturday night and see what we can do. Try to
Cool.
scumbag you into doing some more stuff and get it on video, and then we can put it up on YouTube.
There we go.
All right, and that being said, if you want to see any videos, I think I have one or two of Enzo on the channel, or any future videos. A shameless plug, go to youtube.com/RC Speed Racer to see any kind of videos of RC cars, heli flying, a little bit of everything. Basically, whatever I feel like putting on there that's RC related. If you have any questions for any of us at the show here, drop us a line at fullpackagerc@gmail.com. And if you're interested in any merch or anything, I'll have links for that in the show notes. Feel free to go there, and I'll have links for a couple other things in there as well. So again, I'd like to thank Enzo for taking the time out, coming on the show. And thanks to Aaron and Mike, as always, of, helping round out the show and little banter and asking all the kind of good questions I can never think of.
Yeah, I do what I can.
Yeah, sometimes it's minimal, but that's okay. We'll forgive
Well,
you.
seriously, I don't
apple
get
doesn't
fined.
fall. Apple doesn't fall far from the tree. You raised me, bud.
All right, so the question is, we're going to ask you here real quick. What's going to be the main one you want to beat on? Is it going to be the 570 or is it going to be the M6?
The 570 is just too damn good, and the problem is it's a night flight, so it's going in. We know my history of night flights. I mean, probably the M6, honestly.
That's
if we
good.
can get a high enough head speed on the M6 where it'll actually perform.
Oh, no, this is the beauty of it. So now, as long as you're saying M6, it's just an airframe. So now you can put whatever servos, whatever motor, whatever you want to put into it to
Perfect.
get whatever
I'll feel
head
way
speed
less
you want to
guilty.
get out of it. And then I don't have to
'Cause
worry about it.
It's definitely the flight isn't going to land with skids, so we'll
I
figure
told you.
something out.
I won the
We'll
heli,
figure
but I'll
something out.
donate the heli to you. It's yours if you want it. How's that?
It's
Ooh,
getting
man.
built
a good deal.
specifically for the Saturday night flight. So
I don't know about that.
that's I'm down. Let's do
All
it.
right, we'll figure something out. Maybe I'll have to find some cheaper equipment to put in it down, knowing that.
I love this. I
All
can't
right.
wait to see the skid bumps.
And then Mike will be
Skid
cruising through his
bumps. They're gonna be skid fucking smacks. They're gonna be
the skid thumps.
oh,
So we did forget one other thing though. What's the latest on the Pro Moto?
Ooh, actually, while we were sitting here, I jumped on A-Main Hobbies to see if they had any kind of Memorial Day sale.
And
And I didn't see a sale, but I did see the Pro Moto still sitting in my shopping cart. But it's not on sale, so
all right. Well,
yeah, maybe next month.
Pro Moto is
update.
still to be continued.
We still got
folks.
time because it was Pro Moto for Urcha, so
Yep, we still got
We'll
some
see.
I
time.
think it was cool.
We're getting there. All right, guys. So thank you very much for joining us here tonight. We appreciate you all for taking the time to listen. And again, big thanks to Enzo for being here and telling us all about everything that he does and basically being the embodiment of what we like here at Full Package RC. So guys, thanks, and y'all have a great night.
see you guys.
See ya.
Yeah.